You're watching All Angles on eNCA. It's the Thursday afternoon stretch of the program. Let's continue with issues to do with basic education. And the minister there, Angie Motsekga, says a 3-year recovery plan has been put in place to deal with COVID-19 disruptions. She says the department has been engaging with countries across the continent on how to respond to the pandemic. The focus will be on health and safety, school admissions, and how provinces will manage the curriculum when schools reopen during the week of the 25th of January. For reaction to the basic education briefing, I'm joined by the CEO of Africa Teen Geeks, that's Lindiwe Matladi. Lindiwe, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. So we've been listening there to what the minister and her team have been saying about how to not only recover in terms of the curriculum and the losses there, in terms of the content of what pupils were supposed to have learned in 2020. That's going to take place over a period of some 3 years. But we've also been hearing about plans to reopen in the midst of the pandemic, in fact, in the midst of the second wave. What did you make of what you heard from what the minister was saying about plans for schools reopening and just the general readiness to reopen in the midst of the pandemic?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I was listening attentively to what she was talking about, specifically when she was talking about the young people that were going to come to help with regards to closing the education gap caused by this. But I could not, there were not details for me with regards to what are these teaching assistants are going to be doing. If they're going to be helping the teachers, how is that going to happen? Are we going to have an extension of the school day? Because if the teachers will be teaching during the day, when will those gaps then be filled? Are we going to have more weekend? There was very little detail there. So I'm still confused in terms of how will they be helping in closing the gap? And then also when she was talking about, for us to be able to open the schools again in the midst of the pandemic, and there was a discussion about, the hybrid model of making sure that we also integrate ICT. Also that for me, there was also little detail, because how are we going to do that when we still have the issue of the infrastructure that the learners don't have, the school themselves do not have computer labs, they do not have internet. So if we talk about hybrid, the kids, it means that maybe they should be integrating online learning in between. If that is going to happen, how is that going to happen? Are we looking at, are they looking around maybe the same thing that's been done with universities to give kids laptops? We cannot afford that. Then the data, I think that for me was not clear. But that being said, I think it's important that we actually take note of the great achievement that the department has been able to do in opening the schools and successfully this year with very little, cost to life. I was attending a conference on a global education where I was speaking over the past few days, and it was just amazing for me, as a South African, just to see how well we have done, because everybody is struggling. And we are one of those few countries that, irrespective of what we struggled with, we still did very well.
Yeah, you're saying we still did very well. And just recapping some of the points that you talk about, the whole idea of a hybrid model. So you're absolutely right, talking about those educator assistants, teacher assistants there that are being employed, about 300,000 of them. So that talks to the actual physically reopening schools and pupils going back to school, but also among the priorities being mentioned by the minister, the fast tracking of the rollout of ICT. And that's really your area of passion, is it not? The whole rollout of ICT, because you believe it's basically the direction in which we should be going. And from what I hear, you're not happy with the level of detail. What does fast track the rollout of ICT and school infrastructure really look like?
Yeah, I think, because if you think, we also need to think around the fact that fast tracking that means that we need to have the money for the investment in making sure that those devices or the connectivity at school is done. Where is that money going to come from? Because we know that now we are, as a country, some people believe that we are broke. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But there's a lot of issues that we still have to, the bread and butter issues that we still have to deal with. So I am just not convinced when listening to in terms of how is that going to happen, and what is their plan? If we're going to fast track it, how is that going to be doing? Are we going to be looking at bringing civic society? Are we going to be asking businesses to help, which I think is the best way to go, because government still has to deal with the issues of bread and butter, but business need to, because I really believe that education, it's not just, it cannot be left as a government responsibility alone. It's all our.
There's an interesting statistic that you share in as far as the program that you started and worked on with the Department of Basic Education in the wake of the COVID-19 lockdown and the disruptions to the education calendar. You say there that about 12 million learners are in the South African schooling system, but in terms of the program you started, I don't know if it's pronounced Ms. Zora or MS Zora. You'll correct me on the pronunciation. You're saying that only about 500,000 pupils were able to participate out of a global population within the schooling system of some 12 million. And then you go on to say this highlights the issue of inequality in our society.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact. And also what we've seen with those 500,000 learners that did participate on the live school, what we've seen was they were mainly connecting on their cell phone and iPads, because because their parents were at home using their computers. So the learners they don't have devices, as well. So that also, and because before then we partnered with one company and we wanted to use Teams. It didn't work because Teams was not working as well on the phone. We had to go back to using Zoom because the kids can quickly click and use Zoom because they were using it on their phone. So it's a serious challenge with regards to, if we're gonna say we're gonna do this, we have to make sure that the access to devices that the learners need, specifically the poor kids, and also access to the internet. It is terribly expensive. I've got with me, just like, typical with a lot of Black people like ourselves, we also look after our families. So during the COVID, I had to send computers to my sister's kids and the data. If I told you how much I spent on data for the kids at home, you wouldn't believe, and most people would not afford that. And because they are also in a rural area where I could not even get, an ADSL line, because there's no ADSL where I come from. So yeah. I had to buy physical data, and that is the problems that we have to address.
All right, thank you for your insights there, Lindiwe Matladi from Africa Teen Geeks, weighing in on some of the technological considerations as the country prepares for the reopening of schools amid this pandemic and the second wave here in South Africa. Having heard from the minister there that some 1,493 educators actually died due to COVID-19 in the last few months, and several of the pupils were actually infected as well. So these technological solutions become a real consideration as we prepare for the reopening of schools.